Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting experts straight talk in your ear. These podcasts deliver great interviews with industry leaders and Zweig Group's 3 decades of invaluable research, leadership, management, marketing, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts let you develop personally and professionally, wherever you are.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I am Randy Wilburn, your host, and I'm certainly excited to be with you today. And I'm probably more excited for the simple fact that my guest who's with me, my main man, Noah Hunt, who is an M&A consultant here at Zweig Group, has decided to join us today and to talk M&A. That's been one of the topics that we've discussed quite a bit, actually, in the recent past. There have been a number of articles on the Zweig Letter with regard to the M&A activity that is taking place at record levels throughout the design industry. And so, I mean, we have an amazing team here, and I wish I could get them all on this episode at one time, but I've been able to abscond away with Noah for a minute, and I'm going to pick his brain dry, and hopefully he can share some information with you just about what he's seeing in the marketplace and actually what's going on today. And so without further ado, Noah, it is so great to have you on the podcast. I appreciate you just got back off of a trip, and I know you haven't had much sleep, but I appreciate you taking some time this morning to be with us on this podcast. So thanks so much for coming.
Yeah. Good morning, Randy. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to join you on here and talk everything M&A.
Hey, that's all. That's it. That's what it's all about. Well, so people know, I mean, obviously we talk about a lot of different things on this podcast. We talk about routines. We talk about professional and personal development. We talk about marketing. We talk about M&A. We talk about strategy. We talk about executive search, recruiting, the whole 9 yards. We discuss everything that we possibly can bring up that we think the listening audience wants to hear. And, you know, as I've told people before, you just never know who's listening. And so it's always great to try to share some good advice, especially from the trenches. And hopefully today you'll be able to do that and, you know, give the audience, the listening audience, some feedback on exactly what's happening in such an explosive market when it comes to mergers and acquisitions in the design space. So
yeah, absolutely. We are actually seeing a continual growth through M&A, and I think a lot of that really leans towards obviously. We're seeing a continuization and consolidation and divestitures of these firms. Our industry tends to be highly fragmented. It's a highly fragmented nature, and so we're seeing firms of all shapes and sizes joining joining forces, splitting apart, and also creating and forming these new firms on a daily basis. And so it's a continual growth. And what's really interesting to me is seeing all the top states and all the locations that we're seeing a lot of growth. It's across the board. I would say, Texas and Colorado being 2 of the hottest markets that we see a lot of acquisitions go on.
Yeah, Texas is huge. I mean, it's a big state. I mean, it's a republic into its own right? Mm-hmm, so exactly. I think that's one of the natures. And I've been involved in this industry for the better part of I guess almost the last 3 decades. I've had experience in the 90s, the 2000s, and now in the 2010s. And I mean, even back in the 90s, Texas was hot.
Mm.
Texas was a hot market. I mean, you had kind of like the handoff from the petrochem oil and gas industry into just the general design industry, infrastructure firms that were really growing at a rapid pace. And you've seen a huge amount of consolidation, especially with, big firms like AECOM and Jacobs and others. And so, everybody is kind of taking note and watching what these firms are doing and how they've kind of been able to bring new organizations under their fold and grow that way. I think one of the biggest challenges, though, that and I'd love just to kind of hear your thoughts about it, because you like I said earlier, you're in the trenches, but you really get to hear directly from these owners as they go through this process, and you've seen a number of transactions now. Are you keeping tabs on how many transactions you've been involved with? Or
yeah, I keep a tab.
Okay, notches on your belt.
Exactly.
So that's good. I mean, that's important. But I'd be curious to know, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing out there with the M&A process, both at the beginning of the process. And maybe we can start with that. So let's just kind of break it down about the beginning of the M&A process that most people go through, and some of the misconceptions that people have, and why some people sit on the sidelines when they really should be in the mix when it comes to having these conversations and hearing more about it. So I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say, just one of the main issues that we tend to run into would be within the preparation stage is, developing your deal team, really getting the best people is key number one. I would also say having appropriate expectations going into the deal. Expectations whenever you're looking to execute on these deals. Expectations of what markets that you're going to be working in. One major issue that we actually run into quite a bit is whenever these firms are looking at coming in to these hotter markets or these growth markets, is the expectation of being able to cut a deal. And what I mean by cutting a deal is finding a cheap firm.
Right.
And we've actually seen these, valuations of these firms in, Texas, specifically Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio, are drastically increasing, continuously increasing. And so that's one big issue that we come across a lot. And then also,
is that along the lines of maybe lowballing an offer?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And which happens in just about every environment: real estate, buying a car, you name it. People always want to get things for nothing.
That's your natural tendency, right? Is
exactly.
I see the values. One, I'm going to offer half of one, right?
Right.
Just trying to, get the best deal, obviously.
Yeah.
And so that I would say that would be the number one issue that I've run across is the expectations of, finding these type of deals.
Yeah. And how do you have those, I guess, come to Jesus moments with these owners that, have these misconceptions about what the market would bear, or the fact that, well, I've got money to spend, so somebody should come to me and give me a deal. Yeah,
I think that really lays on our shoulders as the advisor, the upfront conversations in these kickoff meetings that we have with, when we're working with these buyers, is to help them understand, provide data that really supports these deal valuations. We have a number of resources through our valuation survey and also our M&A survey that show these growing trends of valuations. And then also, I know firms are becoming a lot more profitable. M&A tends to really be in line with the economy. And so as the economy grows, obviously these firms are going to be growing as well. M&A deals are going to become more expensive. The multiples are going to increase as well.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you said at the beginning about pulling a deal team together. Can you describe what in your vernacular, what a deal team is?
Yeah, sure. So I would say a deal team includes your legal team, your legal attorney, your accounting team, and also your internal management. And so the internal management is important. You as the owner, you might want to bring in key executives that are not necessarily the decision maker, but the one who is going to be impacted by this acquisition, who's going to be working with this new acquired firm. And then also your external consultants, someone like a Zweig Group,
right.
Someone that allows you to, it's funny, we always say allowed to be the bad guy, or allowed to be the one to, if it ever comes to the point of, needing to break up with this firm, where it's not reflecting on your reputation, rather allowing us to step in and have those difficult conversations.
Right. And somebody has to have them. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
you can't just sit idly by and just hope for the best or hope things ultimately work themselves out. It's one of the reasons why, and if you look in another different industry in real estate, it's one of the reasons why it's always kind of good to have a realtor involved in the process, because then that way you kind of separate the personal part of it from the business aspect of exactly what's going to happen. Because, you and I both know that people take things the wrong way. Words that are spoken from one side or the other can be misrepresented or misread, and then all of a sudden you've got angry parties, and it's just for the simple fact that they were just misunderstood, right? And I think everybody has a feeling that they want to share through a transaction like this, and sometimes those feelings can people can wear them on their shoulders, and somebody like what we do at Zweig Group, a good attorney. Not just any attorney, not like your cousin who does real estate law and you've asked him to sit in because you want him to do some M&A transaction and he has no experience in it. You need an expert in this area. I know we use an individual that probably has more than 200 transactions under his belt.
Yeah, exactly. George Christodilo.
Right.
And we use George.
He's actually been on the podcast. So,
he's been on the podcast.
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
So.
And he's really, a deal maker, very efficient whenever working with these deals. And again, to your point, you really want to work with someone who has the industry expertise within professional services, ideally within, the AEC industry. Because again, this isn't an industry where, you're selling a product or you're manufacturing a product. Our people go home at the end of the day. And so it's important to remember that. And there's different ways to value and to, develop a deal around that.
Absolutely. So what would you say to those firms that get letter after inquiry after inquiry, and they just keep saying, no, I'm not interested in being bought. I'm not, interested in anybody's M&A transaction. What do you say to those guys, and from an open mind perspective, to say, hey, decide not to decide. You don't necessarily need to sell your company today, but you should know what the market could bear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important as a business owner to stay ahead of the market. What I typically, communicate across the board is just, again, that open-mindedness to, have that initial conversation, because at the end of the day, you never know what might come out of that conversation. You might develop a new friendship. You might develop a new business relationship. You might develop, a JV opportunity. And you also might find someone that's interested in essentially taking your business, what you've developed, the people that you've developed, this asset that you've grown to, a point where maybe you're not able to take it to the next level. Come in to one of these larger firms that have the resources, the marketing team behind them that allows them to, grow,
right,
and really elevate this opportunity.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's always, and it's so funny, when we do these podcasts, a lot of times we get interrupted by all kinds of stuff going on, and phones and all kinds of information is shared. And so our founder, Mark Zweig, loves to, especially during the holidays, do some music over the loudspeaker, even if things are happening, even if big deals are going on, like this podcast. So
yes, exactly.
We have to grin and bear it and move on. But this is a active, moving target. So we continue to roll the way that we're rolling. So you guys get all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly in that. But no, I totally hear what you're saying about that, and I think it's something that people just need to be aware of and need to be open to at least hearing what the market will bear.
Right.
And at least have an idea. Because, the thing is, and I was talking to Mark the other day about this, is that, we get calls all the time from firm owners that get up into their 70s. It's not uncommon to have design firm owners that are in their upper 70s.
Right.
Still talking about, well, what's my transition going to be? What's my exit strategy? They have never taken any of that into consideration, much less, an M&A transaction. So I think it's just important to have these conversations early and often. And now we're seeing a different generation of engineers and architects that are in their late 30s and 40s that are saying, I want to know now what my exit strategy is, whether it's going to be an M&A, a merger or acquisition, whether it's going to be some type of ownership transition to the next generation team that's coming up below me. These conversations and these questions need to be had early and often. And I think what you guys do is so important in terms of giving people, an honest assessment, of their firm value, of what could potentially be on the open market and what can ultimately happen. So, it's you guys survey. You have a yeoman's task on you that you have to get done, but it's certainly not easy. But it's if companies are willing to at least just listen, if nothing else, they'll get some invaluable advice, sometimes even free, that will help take them a long way.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a very valid point, a very important point. You need to have these discussions earlier than later. Also, it's important to understand where the industry is going, where the market is trending. Again, I really lean on some invaluable data that we collect. And I'm looking at one of the slides here right now, just of why M&A buyers buy and why M&A sellers sell. And one of the common trend that keeps occurring is, again, managing growth and then also working with your staff. And it's funny, we've actually seen this come up reoccurring over the last couple of years to be one of the top reasons of why these M&A sellers are selling is to again increase opportunities for their staff members, and then also to improve firm management processes, and again those resources of working with these larger buyers. So again, to your point, it's very important to have these conversations sooner than later. All the time, I'm speaking with these potential sellers or these owners that are, like you said, in their 60s and 70s that don't have these integration plans, that are kind of scrambling, trying to come up with a solution.
Right.
And a lot of times that doesn't drive the highest value. Yeah. I think it's really important also to focus on your second tier leadership, really develop that second tier leadership, because that's also going to drive value at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, no, you said a mouthful right there. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that we see is that, there are some real tangible benefits to a merger or acquisition where maybe you are a smaller firm and you can be acquired by a larger firm, maybe not a huge firm, but a larger firm than yours that maybe has certain systems in place that could be a real tangible benefit for your people. And one way to communicate to them that, hey, I really appreciate everything that you've done for me as an owner, that you guys have been with me for these number of years, is that I want to make sure that we continue to remain in good hands and that we're able to grow this even beyond what we thought we could do, right? Because everybody, I always look at different leaders and I think of somebody like an Ozzie Nelson. And I think of Ozzie's experience and what he's done with Nelson Group and what he took from his dad and just grew. He's going to do almost $300 million this year. It's
massive growth.
It's massive. It's massive. But I think about all those firms that have now become part of his vision. And if you are acquired or you merge with the right organization, it can transform literally everything.
Right. And I think that leads into, the branding of that acquisition and what that looks like afterwards as well. I think that really has a strong caveat to, the future success in the acquisitions that you.
Right. Exactly. So there's something to be said for it. And I get that, for some people it can be scary. It can be like, man, this is something, I created this, the sweat of my brow, right. And I'm just, it's and especially since a lot of owners are men, you get the machismo of, well, this is mine and this is what I did. And, the minute that you allow somebody else into your turf or into your backyard, it becomes a much different conversation. Mm-hmm. And so, you almost have to kind of put that aside, that feeling aside and be open to what the possibilities could be for the future for your organization and what it would look like, when you are acquired. And speaking of which, why don't you just kind of walk through And I'd be interested to know what some of the interesting things that you've seen in the actual acquisition process that kind of, that maybe where you had to either step in or you kind of had to help an owner or a company that is selling to fully understand the breadth of the opportunity that you're currently presenting them with. Do you have any specifically that you can think of?
Yeah, one deal that I can think of specifically here recently, we worked with a firm out of Colorado that was looking at making an acquisition. I can't say that it was necessarily, it wasn't an ego standpoint, because this individual at this firm was really passionate about his staff members.
Okay.
I think the area that we really had to step in and provide some guidance is through just culture analysis, understanding the different dynamics of each culture. Each firm has their own culture, and what the beautiful thing is, whenever you are a seller in an extremely hot market, you have options.
Right.
So with that said, we had the opportunity to look at a number of buyers that were extremely interested in doing a deal yesterday, right?
Right.
But we really had to slow down the process and take some time and analyze, what is this going to look like in the future? What is this going to look like for their staff members? What is that new culture? How are we going to develop that new culture? What is that new culture? What will that culture look like? And it, we do at representing the seller, we do lean on the buyer to develop the majority of that, obviously, because they're going to be the one driving the truck.
Right.
But at the same time, we try to essentially get everyone on board.
Right. Yeah. And the culture piece is huge. I mean, that's an issue that we deal with on the executive search side of things. It's like, it's all about culture.
Right.
I was explaining to a client last night, it's one of the reasons why we go out and physically meet with, a firm that we're going to represent. It's like, I can't sell a car that I haven't driven.
Right.
Exactly. I got to drive it. I got to touch it, taste it, see what it's like, get in there and whip it around and make sure it's exactly what it is. But I think it's important that firms need to go in with both eyes wide open. They need to fully understand and embrace the cultural differences of each entity and how you'll make the two mesh and kind of work it out. But I mean, it's an area that is often overlooked because people too often are focused exclusively on the economic side of things.
Right.
But you do so at your own to your own detriment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll have to see how things go. So tell me, now that you've had a chance to cut your teeth on a number of transactions, you've been with us now almost 2 years, right?
Yeah, almost 2 years.
Yeah, I remember you were an intern and you kind of came in and blew everyone away. And we were hoping that we weren't going to lose Noah to Wall Street or some other big muckety muck firm, but he decided to stay right here in good old Fayetteville, Arkansas, and literally help us grow this M&A group. And I mean, you've done an amazing job. I mean, and of course you have the greatest of leaders in Jamie Claire Kaiser, who is just a dynamo in her own right. And you've got Brendan Shearer, and we just have an amazing team here. Mm-hmm. And what you guys are able to accomplish with the numbers that we have it's astounding. I really am. Every time I look up, it's just, there's a new deal or a new transaction. I mean, you guys are constantly busy on the road, meeting with clients, talking to potential firms. I mean, talk about that part of it, because that's one thing that we share in terms of the amount of research that goes into identifying firms that are going to be appropriate. But how, I mean, is that in and of itself probably one of the bigger challenges before you get somebody to the table, is just getting someone to bring to the table?
I would say no, not necessarily. I would say the biggest challenge really, so it's twofold, right? So again, it's identifying firms that are interested, not only finding firms that are interested, someone that would even take our call.
Yep.
You had mentioned earlier, how do you, persuade someone or get someone to actually, take your call after you've reached out to them countless number of times.
Right.
We really lean on, again, just the expertise that the other leaders here at the firm have really developed. Again, you're leaning on their expertise of, how to conduct these conversations and how to conduct the initial contact phase. I would say the biggest challenge really is understanding or explaining and trying to mitigate expectations for example, if I'm representing a buyer and I'm reaching out to a number of sellers, really not digging into the details at the initial upfront conversations, because again, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is find out, number one, is this company a viable fit? Can they work together? Does it fit into our buyers' overall M&A strategy?
Okay.
And so I would say those are some of the first challenges that we run into just in the initial upfront conversations.
Okay. All right, cool. And I'm sure there are plenty of others, but that's a great example of what you normally have to deal with. And I sympathize with that because it's not always easy. But, I always encourage people in anything that we do in this management consulting space for the design industries, people just need to be open to have conversations and just kind of find out what's going on. There's so much you can learn just by listening. And certainly with what you guys do, there's a lot of listening involved, and you have to be patient. The process takes time, but when it bears fruit, I mean, it can be pretty special.
Exactly,
it can be pretty special. And I've seen some of the transactions that you guys have done recently, and obviously, this is all. This has been pretty much common knowledge, and we've seen some companies come together that they didn't look like they were made for each other, but post transaction, you were like, man, this was like the perfect marriage. And you just don't know these things until you actually bring it to the table and try to make it happen. So I certainly applaud you guys. As we wrap up, is there anything else that you think our listening audience would need to kind of be aware of or start thinking about from an M&A perspective for 2018, especially if somebody might be, that owner that's on the fence and, in his mid 50s, maybe early 60s, thinking about, well, what is the next step for me? I'm not really sure. What are some thoughts or advice that you might have for that individual?
Yeah, no, great question. I would say for individuals that are looking to sell or make some exit strategy, really focus on again where the market is trending, and then I would say one area that we tend to see being problematic whenever working with sellers is just their overall financial condition. And what I mean by that is their financial statements. Have your books in order. Have them audited as soon as possible. Not go back a couple of years, have those audited as well. Keep your books up to date and consistent, but really focus on some drivers of value. Be that your second tier leadership. Your diversification in regards to the number of clients that you have, or the percentage of revenue driven by each client. Those are really some key market drivers that we like to see whenever we're pitching these sellers. So,
do you think buyers are more attracted to a firm that has some really great talent as opposed to just a tremendously huge book of business, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I would say talent outweighs all
of it. That's
because
what I thought.
We're in our industry, we're seeing a massive, a major lack of talent coming out, and so M&As actually became one of the key recruiting. Your expertise in the recruiting industry or the recruiting consulting field is M&As became this new way to recruit.
Yeah, it's
talent.
like, look, I can't recruit somebody out of that firm.
Exactly.
I might as well just buy the firm.
Right.
So yeah,
and we've seen that in the tech industry, and so it's nice to see it happening in our industry as well.
All right, so I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit and ask you this question. What would you say? I'm a young millennial. I'm working at a firm. I've put 4 or 5 years in there, and my firm is about to be acquired. Should I be worried? What kind of questions should I be asking if I am all of a sudden faced with that situation?
Yeah, I don't think there's any worry. Again, whenever we represent a buyer, they're acquiring firms for that talent. We need people. Again, we're in a service industry that if we don't have people, we're unable to perform the work.
Can't do it.
Right. And so I would say, questions would be, what is, just as an individual standpoint is, where do you see your career going?
Right.
What are the things that you want to do? Align yourself with mentors, align yourself with the key management to help guide you. But in the standpoint of M&A, and the fear is always that, whenever you find out that your firm is being acquired, that a new staff cut is going to be right around the corner.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily true. That's not true in our industry. And it hasn't been true in our industry, again, to the point that the assets go home at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
People.
Yeah, and you said a mouthful. It's not like we're dealing with a gajillion Python developers or C++. I mean, it's just a different situation. And I tell people all the time, and we have a finite set of human resources in the design space, and people that go through M&A transactions, in most cases, like you said, are going through it to acquire that additional talent that will help drive them to that next level that they're trying to experience.
Exactly.
So, no, that's awesome, man. So, well, no, I really appreciate you taking some time to share with us just your experience. And I know that 2018 should be pretty exciting on the M&A front. And
we've seen some massive growth, and we just continue to grow. Our deal flow is pretty exciting right now. And then I should see, have a lot more coming out of the pipeline.
But that doesn't mean you won't take on any business. So if anybody's listening and they need a little bit of M&A help or advice or are ready to sell or ready to be bought, they can definitely contact you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we'll make sure we get Noah's information in our show notes so that you know how to connect with him. His email is nhunt, NHUNT at zweiggroup.com. And we just want to go a little deeper for our audience, just to learn a little bit more about who the real Noah Hunt is. So we have a couple of simple questions that we'll end our interview with, and hopefully we'll have some fun in the process. Noah, what was the last book you read?
The last book I read it's called High Performing Habits. It's by Brandon Burchard.
Yeah.
#1 seller on New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very powerful book.
Yeah,
I highly recommend it.
He's got a great testimony. Very interesting guy. So really interesting guy. That's a good book. Where did you go on your last vacation?
My last vacation, I recently... I can't remember my last vacation, actually. No, all joking aside.
You may need a break soon. But
that's what it sounds like. No, all joking aside, my last vacation, I just took some time off. And I'm originally from Austin, Texas. And so I went back home and spent some time with some family. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you been to, what's the barbecue place down there that everybody talks about? Felix's?
Oh, yes, Felix. Yeah, Felix. If you're ever in Austin, you have to.
I think, and I don't know if former President Obama made it famous, but now it's what I've been told. I talked to Will Schneer from Big Red Dog, but he's like, man, you got to get out there at like 3 a.m. in the morning to get online to get it. So, but everybody around here that does barbecue says that's the place to go. So I'll have to check it out sometime. I'm sure you can get some good brisket there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you could binge watch one TV series, old or new, what would it be?
I'm kind of torn in this question. I would say it's either it's a cross between Suits and House of Cards. I think I lean more towards House of Cards because the dynamics.
Yeah, although you may not be able to lean on that. Actually, it's been canceled, so won't be any more House of Cards. And I guess with Suits, all the big news now is that one of the stars of Suits is about to become Her Royal Highness or Princess of sorts. So. Is it Meghan Markle? Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. So Harry's done good. So, well, that's awesome, man. No, I want to thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to be with us here on the Zweig Letter podcast. It's invaluable for us to be able to tap into the leadership of this firm, just the knowledge base that we have here at Zweig Group, and we don't take it lightly, and we certainly appreciate our audience relying on us for news and information and advice. And you can certainly catch Noah's thoughts in the Zweig Letter, and certainly would encourage you to check that out. And I've got some free information about that in a second. But Noah, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Randy, for having me.
Absolutely. You did a great job. Folks, listen, I am so excited that you decided to join us today. We really appreciate you listening, no matter where you are, whether it's the treadmill, whether it's out on a run, getting some air, whether it's on a plane, in a car, on an Uber, whatever it is. We appreciate you taking the time to listen and to allow us to give us some space in your head for even just a short period of time. I have a great gift for you because this is the gift giving season. We are now doing the Zweig Letter digital version free. That's right. You heard it. FREE. So I really want to encourage you to just visit zweiggroup.com and click on the Zweig letter link, and that will open up a page. And all you have to do is leave your email address and you're all set. I don't need your blood type. I don't need your cell phone, just your email address, and you can sign up. And every week on Monday, you will get a digital subscription free of charge of the Zweig letter. And you can hear from people like myself and Noah, and of course, our main man, Mark Zweig, who writes the main masthead editorial for the Zweig letter and has been doing so since 1992. I'm almost certain, I don't know this as a fact, so don't kill me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost certain that this newsletter is probably the longest running newsletter in the design industry continuously. But I could be wrong, but it sounds good, so we're going to roll with that. Anyway, listen, I appreciate you guys listening. This has just been another great episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. You can catch us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere that you find amazing podcasts. And remember, if you have a chance and you are so inclined, we'd love it if you give us a 5-star review. And share this with your friends. Remember, sharing is caring. I'm Randy Wilburn, and you've been listening to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Remember to make it a great day. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this Zweig Letter Podcast episode. If you want more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about M&A, strategic planning, HR, and marketing your firm, subscribe now to the digital version of the Zweig Letter free of charge. Just visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe and leave your email address. Your free subscription will begin immediately.